Chapter 16 of Anna Karenina, Book 6. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Philip Griffiths. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Translated by Constance Garnett. Book 6, Chapter 16. Darya Alexandrovna carried out her intention and went to see Anna. She was sorry to annoy her sister and to do anything Levin disliked. She quite understood how right the Levins were in not wishing to have anything to do with Vronsky. But she felt she must go and see Anna, and show her that her feelings could not be changed in spite of the change in her position. That she might be independent of the Levins in this expedition, Darya Alexandrovna sent to the village to hire horses for the drive, but Levin, learning of it, went to her to protest. "What makes you suppose that I dislike your going? But even if I did dislike it, I should still more dislike your not taking my horses," he said. "You never told me that you were going for certain. Hiring horses in the village is disagreeable to me, and what's of more importance, they'll undertake the job and never get you there. I have horses, and if you don't want to wound me, you'll take mine." Darya Alexandrovna had to consent, and on the day fixed Levin had ready for his sister-in-law a set of 4 horses and relays, getting them together from the farm, and saddle horses, not at all a smart-looking set, but capable of taking Darya Alexandrovna the whole distance in a single day. At that moment, when horses were wanted for the princess, who was going, and for the midwife, it was a difficult matter for Levin to make up the number, but the duties of hospitality would not let him allow Darya Alexandrovna to hire horses when staying at his house. Moreover, he was well aware that the 20 roubles that would be asked for the journey were a serious matter for her. Darya Alexandrovna's pecuniary affairs, which were in a very unsatisfactory state, were taken to heart by the Levins as if they were their own. Darya Alexandrovna, by Levin's advice, started before daybreak. The road was good, the carriage comfortable, the horses trotted along merrily, and on the box, besides the coachman, sat the counting-house clerk, whom Levin was sending instead of a groom for greater security. Darya Alexandrovna dozed and waked up only on reaching the inn where the horses were to be changed. After drinking tea at the same well-to-do peasants with whom Levin had stayed on the way to Sviazhsky's, and chatting with the woman about their children, and with the old man about Count Vronsky, whom the latter praised very highly, Darya Alexandrovna, at 10 o'clock, went on again. At home, looking after her children, she had no time to think. So now, after this journey of 4 hours, all the thoughts she had suppressed before rushed swarming into her brain, and she thought over all her life as she never had before, and from the most different points of view. Her thoughts seemed strange even to herself. At first she thought about the children, about whom she was uneasy, although the princess and Kitty (she reckoned more upon her) had promised to look after them. If only Masha does not begin her naughty tricks, if Grisha isn't kicked by a horse, and Lily's stomach isn't upset again, she thought. But these questions of the present were succeeded by questions of the immediate future. She began thinking how she had to get a new flat in Moscow for the coming winter, to renew the drawing-room furniture, and to make her elder girl a cloak. Then questions of the more remote future occurred to her, how she was to place her children in the world. The girls were all right, she thought, but the boys? It's very well that I'm teaching Grisha, but of course that's only because I am free myself now, I'm not with child. Stiva, of course, there's no counting on, and with the help of good-natured friends I can bring them up. But if there's another baby coming...." And the thought struck her how untruly it was said that the curse laid on women was that in sorrow she should bring forth children. "The birth itself, that's nothing, but the months of carrying the child, that's what's so intolerable," she thought, picturing to herself her last pregnancy and the death of the last baby. And she recalled the conversation she had just had with the young woman at the inn. On being asked whether she had any children, the handsome young woman had answered cheerfully, "I had a baby girl, but God set me free. I buried her last Lent." "Well, did you grieve very much for her?" asked Darya Alexandrovna. "Why grieve? The old man has grandchildren enough as it is. It was only a trouble, no working nor nothing, only a tie." This answer had struck Darya Alexandrovna as revolting, in spite of the good-natured and pleasing face of the young woman. But now she could not help recalling these words. In those cynical words there was indeed a grain of truth. Yes, altogether, thought Darya Alexandrovna, looking back over her whole existence during those 15 years of her married life, pregnancy, sickness, mental incapacity, indifference to everything, and, most of all, hideousness. Kitty, young and pretty as she is, even Kitty has lost her looks. And I, when I'm with child, become hideous, I know it. The birth, the agony, the hideous agonies, that last moment, then the nursing, the sleepless nights, the fearful pains. Darya Alexandrovna shuddered at the mere recollection of the pain from sore breasts which she had suffered with almost every child. Then the children's illnesses, that everlasting apprehension, then bringing them up, evil propensities. She thought of little Masha's crime among the raspberries. Education, Latin, it's all so incomprehensible and difficult, and on the top of it all, the death of these children. And there rose again before her imagination the cruel memory, that always tore her mother's heart, of the death of her last little baby, who had died of croup. His funeral, the callous indifference of all at the little pink coffin, and her own torn heart, and her lonely anguish at the sight of the pale little brow with its projecting temples, and the open wondering little mouth seen in the coffin at the moment when it was being covered with the little pink lid with a cross braided on it. "And all this, what's it for? What is to come of it all? That I'm wasting my life, never having a moment's peace, either with child or nursing a child, forever irritable, peevish, wretched myself and worrying others, repulsive to my husband, while the children are growing up unhappy, badly educated, and penniless. Even now, if it weren't for spending the summer at the Levins', I don't know how we should be managing to live. Of course Kostya and Kitty have so much tact that we don't feel it, but it can't go on. They'll have children, they won't be able to keep us. It's a drag on them as it is. How is Papa, who has hardly anything left for himself, to help us? So that I can't even bring the children up by myself, and may find it hard with the help of other people, at the cost of humiliation. Why, even if we suppose the greatest good luck, that the children don't die, and I bring them up somehow, at the very best they'll simply be decent people. That's all I can hope for. And to gain simply that, what agonies, what toil! One's whole life ruined." Again she recalled what the young peasant woman had said, and again she was revolted at the thought, but she could not help admitting that there was a grain of brutal truth in the words. "Is it far now, Mihail?" Darya Alexandrovna asked the counting-house clerk, to turn her mind from thoughts that were frightening her. "From this village they say it's 5 miles." The carriage drove along the village street and onto a bridge. On the bridge was a crowd of peasant women with coils of ties for the sheaves on their shoulders, gaily and noisily chattering. They stood still on the bridge, staring inquisitively at the carriage. All the faces turned to Darya Alexandrovna looked to her healthy and happy, making her envious of their enjoyment of life. "They're all living, they're all enjoying life," Darya Alexandrovna still mused when she had passed the peasant women and was driving uphill again at a trot, seated comfortably on the soft springs of the old carriage, "while I, let out, as it were, from prison, from the world of worries that fret me to death, am only looking about me now for an instant. They all live, those peasant women, and my sister Natalia, and Varenka and Anna, whom I am going to see. All, but not I. And they attack Anna. What for? Am I any better? I have anyway a husband I love, not as I should like to love him, still I do love him, while Anna never loved hers. How is she to blame? She wants to live. God has put that in our hearts. Very likely I should have done the same. Even to this day I don't feel sure I did right in listening to her at that terrible time when she came to me in Moscow. I ought then to have cast off my husband and have begun my life fresh. I might have loved and have been loved in reality. And is it any better as it is? I don't respect him. He's necessary to me," she thought about her husband, "and I put up with him. Is that any better? At that time I could still have been admired. I had beauty left me still." Darya Alexandrovna pursued her thoughts, and she would have liked to look at herself in the looking-glass. She had a traveling looking-glass in her handbag, and she wanted to take it out, but looking at the backs of the coachman and the swaying counting-house clerk, she felt that she would be ashamed if either of them were to look round, and she did not take out the glass. But without looking in the glass, she thought that even now it was not too late, and she thought of Sergey Ivanovitch, who was always particularly attentive to her, of Stiva's good-hearted friend, Turovtsin, who had helped her nurse her children through the scarlatina, and was in love with her. And there was someone else, a quite young man who, her husband had told it as a joke, thought her more beautiful than either of her sisters. And the most passionate and impossible romances rose before Darya Alexandrovna's imagination. Anna did quite right, and certainly I shall never reproach her for it. She is happy, she makes another person happy, and she's not broken down as I am, but most likely just as she always was, bright, clever, open to every impression, thought Darya Alexandrovna. And a sly smile curved her lips, for as she pondered on Anna's love affair, Darya Alexandrovna constructed on parallel lines an almost identical love affair for herself, with an imaginary composite figure, the ideal man who was in love with her. She, like Anna, confessed the whole affair to her husband, and the amazement and perplexity of Stepan Arkadyevitch at this avowal made her smile. In such daydreams she reached the turning of the high road that led to Vozvidenskoe. End of chapter 16.